The HOA president smiled at me, but her eyes never did. Every time a box landed on my porch, it disappeared. Neighbors whispered about thieves, but I knew the truth. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a delivery mistake. It was her. And when I caught her red-handed, I didn't call the cops. I built something far worse, a package that would explode in her face. And when it did, the whole neighborhood watched. But that moment was only the beginning. Welcome back to HOA Stories. My name is Daniel. I live in a quiet suburban cul-de-sac, the kind where lawns are perfect, fences are white, and the HOA controls everything. I work a simple 9-to-5 job, nothing special. But in this neighborhood, what you do doesn't matter. What matters is following the rules, and when you break them, the HOA makes sure you pay. That's where my story begins. I always thought the suburbs were safe, the kind of place where kids ride bikes in the street, where sprinklers run every morning, where everyone waves even if they don't know your name, but that safety was only an illusion. Because in my neighborhood, the real danger wasn't a stranger, it was the HOA, and the person running it, her name was Karen. She wasn't just a neighbor. She was the president of the Homeowners Association. She walked like she owned the streets, like every house, every yard, every mailbox was under her control, and in a way, it was. She fined people for grass being half an inch too tall. She wrote angry letters if trash cans were visible for more than an hour. She even forced one old man to repaint his door. Just because the color wasn't suburban beige enough, people feared her. They didn't fight back. They just nodded and obeyed. But me, I wasn't like them. I tried to stay out of her way. I really did, until the day my packages started disappearing. At first, I didn't notice. A small box here, a delivery there. Sometimes I thought maybe the shipping company lost it, but it kept happening. Again and again, and every time. I felt her eyes on me. One evening I came home from work, tired, hungry, ready to open a package I'd been waiting for. It wasn't on my porch, but as I turned my head, I saw Karen walking quickly across the street, in her hands, my box. She didn't know I was watching from the window. She didn't see my face pressed against the blinds, but I saw her. I saw the smirk she wore, as if the world owed her every single thing inside that box. My heart pounded so hard, I thought she would hear it. My fists clenched. But I didn't move. Because what could I do? This was the president of the HOA, the queen of the cul-de-sac. If I confronted her, she would twist the story. She would say I was lying. She would fine me. Maybe even threaten to take me to court, so I stayed silent. But inside, something began to boil. It didn't stop with one package. It became a pattern. Every time the delivery truck pulled in, I knew Karen would come soon after. Sometimes she pretended to walk her dog. Sometimes she just crossed the street like she owned both sides. And like clockwork, the package would vanish. Neighbors noticed too. I caught them whispering. A man down the road told me his garden tools went missing. Another family said their holiday lights were taken right off their porch, but no one dared to say Karen's name. She had too much power, too many friends on the board. They were all scared. But me, I wasn't scared anymore. I was angry, and anger has a way of turning into something else, something sharper. That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above me, I made a decision. I wouldn't call the police. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't even tell the board. I would make her pay in a way shows. He could never forget. I started researching. Late nights on my phone, scrolling through forums, watching videos, and then I found it. A simple little trick that could turn an ordinary package into a glitter bomb. Not just a sprinkle, not just a puff, but an explosion of glitter so strong it would cover her hair, her clothes, even the inside of her house if she carried it in. It was cheap, it was harmless, but it was humiliating. Exactly what she deserved. The next day, I placed an order for what I needed. The whole time I kept picturing her face, the shock, the rage, the way she would scream when the glitter hit her skin. I knew it was petty. I knew it was childish, but it felt right. In this neighborhood, power wasn't taken away with reason or rules. It was taken away with humiliation. Days passed. I kept my plan secret. On the surface, I waved like a normal neighbor, but inside, every second felt like a countdown. And then finally, The package arrived. This one. She wouldn't be able to resist. I carried it to my porch, set it down gently, and stepped back inside. My heart beat faster than ever before. Would she fall for it? Would she finally get what she deserved? I waited by the window, and as the sun dipped low, I saw her shadow cross the street. She didn't knock. She didn't hesitate. She bent down, lifted the box, and carried it home with her smug smile. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying the moment Karen took the glitter bomb. I pictured her face when it exploded, her scream echoing down the street, her clothes covered in green sparkles, but when I looked out my window, everything was quiet. Her house sat still, blinds closed tight, not a sound. Hours passed. I waited, and then I heard it. A shriek so loud it cut through the silence of the whole neighborhood. I rushed to my porch, pretending to grab the newspaper, and that's when I saw her. Karen stormed out of her front door, her hair glowing with green glitter, her shirt sparkling like a cheap Christmas ornament, her face twisted in rage, her arms flailing as she tried to brush off the glitter. But glitter doesn't go away that easy. It clings, it sticks, it shines brighter the more you fight it. Neighbors started peeking out their windows. Some stepped onto their porches. Phones came out. Cameras clicked. I saw a teenager across the street laughing so hard she had to hold on to her friend. Even the quiet old couple next door couldn't hide their smirks. For the first time ever, Karen wasn't in control. She wasn't the queen of the HOA. She was the joke of the block, and the best part, she didn't even know it was me. Her eyes darted around, scanning every house, every porch, searching for someone to blame. But how could she prove it? It was just a box she wasn't supposed to touch. She screamed about thieves, about vandals, about respect for property. The irony almost made me laugh out loud. Respect for property. From the woman who stole mine. Later that day, she tried to hold an emergency HOA meeting. She marched into the clubhouse still sparkling, leaving a trail of green dust behind her. But nobody could take her seriously. Board members covered their mouths to hide their chuckles. Neighbors avoided her gaze. Every time she spoke, glitter shimmered under the lights, reminding everyone of her humiliation, the power she once had. It slipped through her fingers like sand, and I sat back, silent, watching her empire crumble one sparkle at a time. But here's the thing. The more she tried to fight it, the worse it got. Glitter spread everywhere. Into her car, onto her furniture, even into her husband's office suit. Soon, every place she went, people whispered she wasn't the feared HOA president anymore. She was the glitter witch. For weeks, I lived in Petit Ace. No fines, no letters, no stolen packages. It felt like victory. But victories in the suburbs, they never last long. Because Karen, she wasn't done with me, not even close. She started walking slower past my house, glaring harder, scribbling notes on her little clipboard. I could almost hear her thoughts. She wanted revenge too. And that's when I realized, this wasn't over. This was only round one. Karen's glitter disaster should have been the end. But deep down, I knew someone like her could never just walk away. She lived on control. It was her fuel, her crown, her weapon. And once it was taken from her, she needed someone to blame. And in her mind, that someone was me. I noticed it in the small things first. Her stares lingered longer when she passed my house. Her fake smile twisted into a sneer. Her little clipboard appeared in her hands every time she slowed her steps near my porch. She couldn't prove anything. But she didn't need proof. She had power. She had rules. She had the HOA. And when people like her have power, they don't let go easy. A week after the glitter bomb, I got my first letter, folded neatly, slipped into my mailbox. The words were simple, but sharp. Violation. Trash cans visible past allotted time. I stared at the paper in disbelief. My cans were inside the garage. I knew it. My neighbors knew it. But facts didn't matter. Only her pen did. The next day, another letter. Violation. Grass length exceeds 3 inches. I bent down with a ruler. My grass barely touched 2. She wasn't writing letters to enforce rules. She was writing them to break me. At night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Every sound outside made me check the window. Was she creeping around, taking pictures of my yard, my porch, my life? It felt less like a neighborhood and more like a prison. But here's the thing about prison. Sometimes prisoners find ways to fight back. I decided I wouldn't let her scare me. If she wanted war, then war is what she would get. So I started playing by her rules. Every child. She opened the door, her face smug, almost expecting me. "Yes," she said coldly. I threw the letters at her feet. "Enough," I said, my voice low but steady. "You know these are fake. You know I've done nothing wrong." She tilted her head, a cruel smile spreading. "Rules are rules," she whispered. "And you're a troublemaker." Her words chilled me, because in that moment, I realized she didn't care about rules at all. This wasn't about the HOA. This was personal. I turned and walked away, my blood boiling, my fists clenched so tight they hurt. She wanted to play dirty. Fine, I could play dirtier. That night, I sat at my desk, searching through HOA bylaws, page after page, line after line, and that's when I found it, buried deep in the rules. A clause about board accountability. If a president abused their position, if they falsified violations, if they harassed homeowners, they could be removed by a community vote. A smile spread across my face. Karen thought she was untouchable. But the very rules she used to attack me were the same rules I could use to destroy her. I started talking to neighbors, at first quietly, casual conversations on sidewalks, friendly waves that lasted longer than usual. Then whispers turned into plans. Everyone had a story about Karen, the fines, the threats, the ridiculous demands. I wasn't the only one she targeted. She had built her throne on fear. But people were tired of bowing. One neighbor showed me a stack of letters just like mine. Another admitted she had cried after Karen forced her to repaint her fence 3 times in 1 month. The more stories I heard, the stronger my resolve grew. We weren't just fighting for ourselves, we were fighting for our neighborhood. The day of the vote came. Neighbors gathered in the clubhouse, folding chairs in rows. The smell of coffee and tension filling the air. Karen stood at the front, clipboard in hand, eyes sharp as knives. She thought she was still in control, but when the ballots were counted, the truth hit her like a hammer. The board voted to remove her. Gasps filled the room. Whispers spread like wildfire. Karen's face turned pale, then red, then pale again. For the first time ever, she was powerless. I should have felt satisfied. I should have walked away with a smile. But as I watched her storm out of the clubhouse, glitter still faintly shining in her hair, I realized something chilling. Karen wasn't the kind of person who gave up. She wasn't going to vanish quietly into the night. She would come back, and when she did, she would be more dangerous than ever. And that's where the real suspense begins. Because power may shift, rules may bend, neighbors may rise up, but someone like Karen doesn't stop until she gets revenge. For a while, the neighborhood was quiet. The air felt lighter, the streets calmer. The kind of peace I hadn't felt in months. Packages stayed on porches, letters stopped appearing in mailboxes. Neighbors actually smiled again, without Karen. It almost felt like the suburbs I dreamed of when I first moved here. But peace in this place never lasts long. Because Karen wasn't gone. She was only waiting. She lost the title of HOA president, but she still lived across the street every time I stepped outside. I could feel her eyes watching, behind curtains, through blinds. Sometimes from the driver's seat of her car parked just a little too long in front of my house. And that's when the small things began again. At first it was subtle. A dead patch of grass appeared on my lawn one morning, like someone poured something overnight. A nail lay sharp and shiny at the edge of my driveway, right where my tires rolled, a smear of mud across my mailbox that hadn't been there. The night before? Accidents. Maybe. But my gut told me otherwise. Karen was back. And this time, she wasn't using the HOA to fight me. She was doing it herself. I tried to ignore it. I told myself not to feed into her games, but the truth is, ignoring people like Karen only makes them bolder. One night, just after midnight, I heard a noise outside, a soft rustling, like footsteps on grass. I crept to the window, careful not to make a sound, and there she was. Karen, standing on my lawn, flashlight in hand, scribbling something on her cursed clipboard. My blood boiled, my fists clenched. But I didn't open the door. I just watched, heart pounding, until she finally slithered back across the street. The next morning, I found a letter taped to my door, not from the HOA, but from her directly, in red ink, bold and sharp. "You don't belong here." The words burned into me. She wasn't trying to find me anymore. She was trying to erase me. Neighbors started noticing too. A woman down the block told me Karen had left notes in her mailbox, threatening to report her dog for barking. Another said Karen accused her teenage son of loitering outside his own house. It was clear. Karen might have lost the board, but she was starting her own war. And me. I was still target number one. I knew I couldn't stay passive, so I decided to document everything. Every patch of ruined grass, every scratch on my car, every note taped to my door. I kept photos, videos, even sound recordings from a small camera hidden by my porch light. If Karen wanted to play dirty, I'd build my case piece by piece, because this time I wasn't going to wait for her to hang herself. I was going to push the chair out from under her. But the deeper I went, the stranger things became. One afternoon, I came home to find a package waiting on my porch. For a second, my stomach dropped. Had she dared to leave something for me? The box was unmarked. No return address. No company logo. Just plain brown cardboard. I aeried it inside carefully, my mind racing. Could it be a trap? Could she be trying to turn my glitter trick back on me? Slowly, I opened it. Inside was a single photograph, a picture of me, sitting on my porch, drinking coffee. Completely unaware it was being taken, my hand shook as I held it. On the back, written in red marker, were 4 words: "I'm always watching you." My heart raced. Anger and fear twisted together. This wasn't petty revenge anymore. This was psychological warfare. I stormed across the street. Clutching the photo in my fist, I pounded on her door. Lights flickered inside. Shadows moved, but no one answered. Finally, the curtain shifted just slightly, and I saw her eyes, cold, gleaming, filled with something darker than hate. She smiled and let the curtain fall back. I stood there, powerless, my rage trapped in my chest. Days turned into weeks. Strange things kept happening, lights flickering at odd hours, car alarms in the middle of the night, doors left ajar that I knew I had locked. Sometimes I swore I heard footsteps outside my bedroom window, but when I looked, no one was there. Neighbors whispered that she had lost her mind. But I knew better. She hadn't lost it. She was using it in the cruelest way possible. And then came the night that changed everything. It was storming, rain hammering the roofs, wind shaking the fences. I sat in my living room, the glow of the TV flickering against the walls. That's when I heard it, a loud crash outside, like glass shattering. I ran to the door, opened it, and froze. My car window was smashed. Glass glittered across the driveway, rain soaking into the seats, and standing in the shadows at the edge of the street. Karen. She didn't run. She didn't hide. She just stood there, in the pouring rain, watching me, her face pale, her hair plastered to her skin, and in her hand, that same clipboard. She raised it slowly, and in a chilling voice that cut through the storm, she shouted, "You don't deserve to live here." My chest tightened. My stomach turned cold. This wasn't HOA business anymore. This wasn't even neighbor drama. This was obsession, pure and dangerous. I knew in that moment she wouldn't stop, not until she ruined me completely. Or worse, and as the storm raged, as the rain fell harder, I looked her straight in the eye and realized something terrifying. This wasn't about packages anymore. This wasn't about glitter bombs or HOA rules. This was personal, a battle that wouldn't end until one of us was gone. After that stormy night, sleep became impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, standing in the rain, clipboard in hand, her voice slicing through the thunder. "You don't deserve to live here." Those words stayed with me, like a curse I couldn't shake. The neighborhood no longer felt like home. Every creak of wood, every rattle of wind, every shadow across the blinds, it all felt like her, like she was there, watching, waiting. I tried to tell myself it was paranoia, but paranoia doesn't smash car windows. Paranoia doesn't slide photographs of you onto your own porch. Paranoia doesn't leave muddy footprints by your back door. This was real. Karen was making sure I never felt safe again. I decided enough was enough. If she wanted war, I was going to fight back. Not with glitter this time. Not with silly tricks. This had gone too far. Now it was about exposing her completely. I spent days gathering evidence, every note, every letter, every photograph. I built a file thicker than any HOA rulebook. Neighbors gave me their stories too. Some whispered out of fear. Others shouted in anger. One man showed me dents in his car door. Another revealed piles of dead plants from poisoned soil. It wasn't just me. Karen was spreading her poison across the entire block, and with every testimony, my case grew stronger. But here's the thing about cases. It don't matter if people are too scared to speak. I needed proof she couldn't deny, something undeniable, something that even she couldn't twist. So I set a trap. I installed cameras across my porch, hidden in birdhouses, tucked under eaves, small, silent, invisible. If she dared step onto my property again, I'd catch her red-handed, and sure enough, she couldn't resist. It was 2 a.m. when my phone buzzed, motion detected. I opened the feed with shaky fingers. And there she was, Karen, creeping across my lawn in the dark. Flashlight beam darting across the grass. She crouched near my porch, scribbling furiously on her clipboard. Then, unbelievably, she pulled a small bottle from her pocket. She poured liquid across the base of my fence, soaking the wood, poison, or acid. I couldn't tell, but it didn't matter. I had her. The next morning, I downloaded the footage. My hands shook as I pressed play. There was no denying it, no excuse, no lie, no escape. She was caught. I shared it with a few trusted neighbors. Their jaws dropped. Their anger grew. The whispers turned into outrage. By noon, the entire street had seen it. Karen's power wasn't just cracking now, it was collapsing. People began to confront her, on the sidewalks, in driveways, at the mailbox. They demanded answers. But Karen, she didn't back down. She shouted. She cursed. She accused everyone else of framing her. The more she fought, the guiltier she looked. And that's when the chaos truly began. The neighborhood turned into a battlefield. Sides were drawn, some still supported her, too loyal or too scared to admit the truth. But most stood against her. Meetings turned into screaming matches. Neighbors who once waved politely now shouted across fences. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about us. The perfect suburban image. White fences, green lawns, quiet nights, all above. If it shattered, now it was glittering glass on driveways, bitter notes taped to doors, arguments spilling into the streets. The HOA wasn't the problem anymore. It was around 3 a.m. when smoke jolted me awake. Alarms blared. Flames flickered outside my kitchen window. I stumbled to the backyard, heart pounding, only to find a pile of my trash blazing near the fence. The smell of gasoline hit me hard. This wasn't an accident. Someone had lit it on purpose. I grabbed the hose. Neighbors ran out with buckets. Together we smothered the flames before they spread, but my hands shook as I stared at the blackened patch of ground. Karen had crossed the line, from vandalism to arson. I called the police, for the first time since this nightmare began. I broke my silence. They came, asked questions, took photos, wrote notes. I told them about Karen, about the letters, the threats, the video. They listened, nodded, but their eyes told me the truth. Without direct proof, they couldn't act, and proof was exactly what Karen was careful about. She didn't light that fire where a camera could see her. She didn't spray paint in the daylight. She was smart. Too smart. Still, I wasn't giving up. I added more cameras, doubled my locks, even set motion alarms along the yard. If she wanted to come at me, she'd have to slip through a fortress. But Karen wasn't just attacking with actions anymore. She was attacking my mind. Everywhere I went. She was there, at the grocery store, standing 2 aisles away, glaring at me over a box of cereal, at the gas station, parked just behind me, revving her engine as I filled my tank. Even at work, a mysterious call came to my boss accusing me of stealing property from neighbors. Karen wasn't just trying to scare me, she was trying to erase me. And it worked. For a while, I stopped sleeping. I jumped at every sound. My hand shook when I checked the mail. Every shadow felt like her. Every laugh on the street sounded like mockery. But then something changed. The neighborhood finally. He snapped one evening. A group of us gathered in front of my house. Men and women who once stayed silent, now furious. Fed up. They told me Karen had left notes for them too. Vandalized their gardens. Cursed at their kids. It wasn't just me anymore. It was everyone. And together, we decided enough was enough. We pooled money for a lawyer, not to defend ourselves, but to take action. We filed restraining orders, harassment complaints, even civil suits. For the first time, Karen wasn't the hunter, she was the hunted. But like a cornered animal, she struck back harder than ever, the night before her first court date. I heard glass shatter in my living room. I rushed down with a bat in my hands, adrenaline surging, there, in the middle of the floor. A brick, wrapped in duct tape, and taped to it. A note in red marker. Leave now, or next time, it's your house. My knees went weak. For a moment I thought I might collapse. This wasn't just intimidation anymore. This was a promise. The police came again. Took the brick, wrote their report, but still, no fingerprints, no footage, no proof. Karen slipped through the cracks once again. I stood in the middle of my ruined living room, glass crunching under my shoes, and realized something chilling. If Karen couldn't take my power, she would take my peace. And if she couldn't take my peace, she would take my life. That thought sat heavy on my chest, like a weight I couldn't lift. For days I barely spoke, barely ate. Every sound outside made me flinch. Every dream ended in flames. But then, something inside me shifted. Fear turned to anger. Anger turned to resolve. Karen wanted me gone. But if I left, she'd only do it to someone else. And I couldn't let that happen. So I made a decision. Not to run, not to hide, but to finish this once and for all. I hired a private investigator, someone who could do what I couldn't: follow her, watch her, dig through her life. Within weeks, he uncovered everything. Karen was the infection, and our neighborhood was sick. I thought maybe, finally, the board would step in, that they'd use the footage, remove her completely, ban her from meetings. But Karen wasn't finished yet. She filed a lawsuit, not against me, not against the board, against the entire community. She claimed harassment, defamation, a conspiracy to destroy her reputation. She painted herself as the victim, a woman bullied by her neighbors. And the terrifying part was, she had money to fight, lawyers, paperwork, threats of court battles that could drag on for years. When the news hit, people panicked. No one wanted endless legal fees. No one wanted their name dragged through court. For a moment, it felt like she might actually win. Not because she was innocent, but because she was relentless. That's when I realized, if we didn't act fast, Karen would own us all over again. So I did something risky. I leaked the footage, not just to neighbors, but online, a local community forum, then a bigger one. Then it spread further than I imagined. Crazy HOA president caught vandalizing neighbor's property. The title alone was enough to draw thousands of eyes, and the video, well, it spoke for itself. The comments poured in. People laughed, people raged, people shared their own horror stories about HOAs. Karen became a meme overnight, the glitter witch of the suburbs, now viral for all the wrong reasons. At first, I felt relief. Finally, the world could see her for what she was, but relief quickly turned to dread, because if Karen hated me before, now she would destroy me. She stopped hiding after that. She stood in her yard screaming at me. She hurled insults loud enough for the whole block to hear. She threw eggs at my mailbox in broad daylight. Her mask was gone, and the monster underneath was out for everyone to see. But here's the strange part. The more unhinged she became, the stronger our neighborhood grew. People started banding together. Cookouts turned into strategy meetings. Casual chats became support groups. For the first time, it wasn't just me fighting Karen. It was all of us. And still, deep down, I couldn't shake one thought, a thought that gnawed at me no matter how much evidence I had, no matter how many people stood by my side. Karen wasn't going to stop until she broke me personally, because glitter fades, lawsuits end, neighbors move on. But the kind of obsession I saw in her eyes, that doesn't fade. That doesn't end. It only grows darker. Karen was cornered, but she wasn't defeated. The video of her vandalizing my fence had gone viral. Neighbors whispered her name with disgust. Her once iron grip on the HOA was shattered. But if I had learned anything about Karen, it was this. She didn't stop when she lost power. She stopped only when her enemy was destroyed, and in her eyes, I was the enemy. At first, it came in waves of rage. She screamed at me in the street, shouted lies at passing cars, accused me of hacking her phone and stealing her mail. She called me a criminal, a menace, the devil of the cul-de-sac. But no one believed her anymore. Her words fell on deaf ears, and that silence only drove her deeper into madness. One night, I found spray paint across my garage door, big red letters, jagged and uneven. Thief. The irony nearly made me laugh, but the knot in my stomach told me this was no joke. I repainted it the next morning. By sunset, the word was back again. This wasn't a prank. This was war. And Karen was escalating. Neighbors started to worry. Some told me quietly that they admired me for standing up, but begged me not to make things worse. Others avoided eye contact altogether, scared that if they stood near me, they'd become her next target, and maybe they were right, because the more she attacked me, the more desperate she became. Then came the fire. Fraudulent HOA expenses, stolen packages stacked in her garage, even footage of her sneaking into another neighbor's yard at night. She wasn't just tormenting me. She was terrorizing the whole block. The evidence was undeniable. When we presented it in court, the room fell silent. The judge stared at her. The jury whispered, and Karen finally cracked. She screamed, cursed, threw her clipboard across the room, and in that moment, the mask shattered completely. She wasn't the queen of the HOA anymore. She was just a desperate woman drowning in her own madness. The court issued restraining orders, heavy fines, even probation. Karen's reign was over, or so it seemed, because even as they dragged her out of that courtroom, even as her neighbors watched with relief, she turned her head, locked eyes with me, and smiled, a smile so cold, so sharp, it froze my blood, and I knew, even without power, without the HOA, without the neighborhood's fear, Karen wasn't finished. She was waiting, and the next time she struck, it wouldn't be with fines or letters. It would be with something far worse. After the courtroom, the neighborhood changed. The clubhouse where Karen once ruled became a place of laughter again. Fences were mended. Lawns looked brighter. People waved without fear. For the first time in years, the street felt alive. But me, I couldn't relax. Not completely, because even though the judge had spoken, even though the restraining order was official, even though Karen's clipboard had been taken from her hands, her smile haunted me, that twisted grin she gave as they pulled her from the room. It wasn't defeat, it was a promise. And a promise from Karen was as dangerous as fire. Weeks passed. No late-night notes, no spray paint, no smashed windows, no shadows lurking on the lawn. At first, I wanted to believe it was over, that maybe the system worked, that maybe the order scared her into silence. But quiet isn't always peace. Sometimes quiet is the sound before the storm, and the storm came on a Friday night. It was late. I had just returned from work, the sky heavy with clouds but the air strangely still. As I stepped onto my porch, I noticed something odd. A package, not the usual size, larger, heavier, no label. No tape from Amazon or FedEx, just plain brown cardboard. My chest tightened. I hadn't ordered anything, and I knew exactly who had left it. I stood there staring, heart pounding, every muscle tense. Memories of my glitter bomb came rushing back. Was this her way of turning the tables? Was this box her revenge? Part of me wanted to run, call the police, let someone else deal with it. But another part of me, the angry part, the tired part, the part that had been pushed too far, refused to give her that satisfaction. I bent down slowly, lifted the box. It was lighter than I expected. I carried it inside, placed it on the table, and opened it carefully. Inside was another photograph. Not of me this time, of my parents, taken outside their home 2 towns over, smiling in their driveway. Completely unaware a stranger had been there with a camera, My stomach dropped. My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped the photo. On the back, again in red marker, 4 chilling words. Family isn't off limits. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just about me anymore. Karen was reaching beyond my fence, beyond my street. She was reaching into my life, my blood, the people I loved most, that night. I didn't sleep. I sat by the window with every light on, baseball bat in my hands, waiting for the sound of footsteps, waiting for the shadow that never came. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house. I told them everything, showed them the photo. Our smiles faded. Their hands trembled. Fear etched into their faces. They wanted to call the police, move away, anything to escape her. But I knew escape wasn't possible anymore, not until Karen was gone for good, so I doubled down. More cameras, more locks, even a security system with motion lights and alarms. Neighbors pitched in too. We created a watch group, patrolling at night, sending messages when anything seemed off. For a while, it worked. Karen disappeared again. Or so we thought, because madness doesn't vanish, it waits. It festers. It plots. One night, close to midnight, my phone buzzed, motion detected in the driveway. I opened the feed with a lump in my throat. And there she was, Karen, standing at the edge of the light, her face pale, her hair wild. But she wasn't holding a clipboard this time. She was holding a can of gasoline. My blood froze. I bolted out the door screaming. Neighbors rushed out as alarms blared. Karen dropped the can, her eyes wide and crazed, and ran. Her feet pounded against the pavement, her screams echoing into the night. The police caught her an hour later, disheveled, muttering, still clutching a book of matches. And just like that, it was over. This time, she didn't get fines. She didn't get probation. She got taken away in the back of a squad car, charged with attempted arson and violation of a restraining order. The neighborhood sighed with relief. People hugged, laughed, celebrated like prisoners freed from a warden. For the first time, Karen wasn't coming back. At least, not to our street. But me. I didn't celebrate, because even as they dragged her away, even as the sirens faded into the night, one thought echoed in my mind. She had already won in one way. She had changed me. I wasn't the same neighbor who once waved politely. I wasn't the man who thought of the suburbs as peaceful and safe. I was harder now, more guarded, more suspicious. Every time a package lands on my porch, I hesitate before picking it up. Every time. I see headlights pause too long in front of my house. I tense. Every time I hear laughter down the street, I wonder if it's about me. Karen might be gone. But the scars she left remain. Still, when I look around at the neighborhood now, I see something new. Unity. The fences may be chipped. The lawns may not be perfect. But the people are stronger. We survived the storm together. We faced down the monster in our cul-de-sac and lived to tell the tale. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real victory. Because glitter fades. Spray paint washes away. Fires burn out. But the story lives on. And if you're hearing this now, it means you're part of it too. So let me ask you, if your neighborhood had a Karen like mine, would you stand and fight like we did? Or would you pack up, leave the keys on the counter, and never look back?